Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Matthew. I'll be hosting and introducing everyone, helping set the tone for our conversation today. We're going to be talking about how to get more out of your consult, whether it's a boost in spend, adoption of long-term treatment plans, selling high-ticket packages, and ultimately helping your patients reach their ideal aesthetic outcomes. And today we have Sugam Arora and Abby Honecker. Sugam is our CEO and co-founder of Ponce AI. He comes from a really big history in technology from Google and Lyft, as well as experience as a business manager of Judge MD, facial aesthetic plastic surgery office in downtown San Francisco. So he has years of experience both building technology and supporting the business operations of an aesthetic practice. And then we have Miss Abby Honecker. She's the president of partner success at Pink Sky. Pink Sky is an aesthetic agency. It's very boutique, especially in the AI space. They're absolute experts at operations, helping practices get started up, stay compliant, and adopt new longevity and wellness technologies and services into their practice. So I'm going to hand this off to Abby, and she's going to take it away to help everyone understand what Ponce AI can do for your practice and how it can help impact your patient outcomes.
Matthew, you did a great job. Thank you so much. As we kind of dive in here today, guys, we really want to talk about what aesthetic expertise has traditionally only been, and what it has been, and available only within the clinic. But today's patients, they expect what? They expect access to information. They want guidance directly from their mobile phones. Mobile, we believe, is truly the future, and in-office only approach for patient education is quickly becoming very antiquated. So once your patients leave your clinic, what happens? Questions often arise, and they compare options over time, and you may lose that client in the long term. So without that continued provider guidance, they go to their social media. They go to different forums, review sites, referrals, friends. They use AI to answer those questions that are typically generic and not truly tailored to their treatment or their needs. So as clarity starts to fade and new questions go unanswered in this industry, what happens? Interest declines, decisions are often postponed or lost altogether. So today in this masterclass, we are going to look at Ponce AI and Pink Sky and discuss how practices are shifting towards that mobile first patient experience. If you've ever worked with me or spoken with me or had a strategy session, patient experience is my number one thing that we start with, and utilizing Ponce AI and their technology, that's going to help you maintain your voice beyond the four walls of your clinic. So we want to improve the conversation, we want to strengthen those consultations, and then ultimately we want to support each of our clinics with consistent growth. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. So as we kind of jump into this, Sugam, I think we just start that where do patients go, right? Where do they go for answers? What do we expect with the clinic? What does that look like when clients are searching for that next treatment or that next clinic that they want to come to solve their problems?
Yeah. Thanks, and Abby, thanks for doing this with us and taking the opportunity to present what we've been doing. It's we're doing something pretty crazy here, right? We're challenging a lot of the way clinics have sold for a long time, and I think what we believe is that AI changes everything, right? AI allows clinics to do things that they could never ever do before, and there were some really big limitations here, like you say, right? Like these clinics, they were asking patients who are so interested and curious about making sure they look the best, that they care so much about these things, right? Everyone I talk to, every one of our customers, they gleam about their patients. They're like, my patients are amazing. That's all I hear, right? And yet they have this constant problem, is like, how do they get their patients comfortable with the different treatment options that they have? It's almost like, I hear this analogy a lot. A med spa has become like a Cheesecake Factory menu. There's so many options, right? And how do you know which one of those things is right? But the provider knows, right? The providers have the expertise of that. But what happens today is, like, really those providers, their business model is to deliver treatments. That's what they get paid for. But they do these consultations, and one time, if they even do them for every patient. A lot of times patients just come in and say, give me some Botox, and they give it to them and they're on their way. But if they have the consultation, it's a one time, it's a short period, and they're talking about so much, and some patients just have a laundry list of questions, or they don't even know what questions to ask. And so what ends up happening is like a lot of information gets transferred, but most of that doesn't actually result in purchases. That's what we've seen, right? They talk for 10 minutes, 30 minutes sometimes, and they'll ask about lasers and, radio frequencies and chemical peels and, injections and skincare. And there's so much stuff here. All of it has science and data behind it, but it's just not enough time for patients to really understand. And so we think that that's where this is stalled. And we've built is now actually kind of proven that we are able to really boost the way the patient experience around patients really understanding what are all the options and ultimately purchasing a lot more. So what you were saying is, today what happens is the provider is just a data point, right? They go in, the provider gives them some data and says, oh, I think you should get like a Morpheus 8 treatment. Okay, great. They're going to go home now and look up Morpheus 8. And they're going to look at, social media influencers. They're going to look at what other providers are saying. They're going to ask AI, right? ChatGPT about this thing. They're going to look everywhere and elsewhere. And, some of that information could be correct, but a lot of it often isn't, right? A lot of it is, it's generic at the end of the day. And that generic advice is the big problem, is that what may be right for one person isn't necessarily right for you. Right? So just because one person got a Morpheus 8 treatment because they had some laxity doesn't mean that that's what's right for you. You could have a different kind of, you could have a pigmentation problem, and that Morpheus 8 is not the right solution for that, right? Or, you don't have the same definition problem that they have. And so, that advice has to be tailored to the patient. And today that was limited to the provider. And I think what we're really excited to really bring to market is the ability to take that and bring it to the patient, to bring the provider's voice to the patient and put all of that on the patient's phone.
We'll talk a little bit about what that looks like prior to that consultation, because I agree with you completely. You're looking at it from, there's a lot of information out there. I see it, every day in our clinics with providers that are new that really can't put the big picture together as well. So it's like it's a sushi menu. They just pick, well, I want this amount of talks, or I want this service, or I sold this treatment, and they're just signing, okay, great. And we're not really getting them to the results that they want, which is what's going to keep them long term. So I have a provider issue most of the times. I have my rock star providers, but how do I replicate them and give them that information? So what does that process look like to getting that information and using this as a tool with our providers?
Yeah, so you are, as usual, Abby, you've been doing this for so long. You're in the know here, right? This is we see this all the time. So when practices have more than one provider, or it's a newer provider, right? There's a big gap in what the providers that are very good at this can do versus the ones that are not. And the problem isn't just in their ability there isn't just in their ability to actually do the treatments, right? To deliver the treatments. They end up getting trainings for that. They'll go to courses that most providers I know are dedicated.
I'll chat with Abby, and Abby, you're such an expert here in this space, and and talking to providers, I think one thing gets overlooked in this space, and I would love your opinion on this, that it's really hard to sell almost anything to anyone. And when you're selling a transformation of your aesthetic and how you look that you may have never heard of before, how do you help, coach these practices through that operation of how do you sell? And with selling comes objections and maintaining provider confidence in their recommendations. So how do you see that kind of impacting practices with, the reality of running a business is you have to make sales?
Yeah, I think it always comes to education. I always say I don't sell in med aesthetics, or, if you're looking at longevity, wellness, anything that's concierge cash based, selling is something that providers are really uncomfortable with most of the time. And the reason they're doing that is because they're not putting the big picture together for their clients. Because if I have an issue, right, if I come in with a desire, a result that I'm looking for, I don't need to be sold on something, right? I need to be educated on my options to get to that end point. So if you can solve for X and then put that in front of me and give me the best, the better, the good, and walk me through my options, right? Here's your options. This is going to get you to that result faster. We have a timeline here. You want this at this point. This is the treatment that we're recommending for you, and all of the products and the at-home care and the maintenance, right? The big picture. But if price becomes an issue, now you build that into the better model, and at least you get down to the good, where you're educating them on, this is how you're going to do this. This is how you're going to get to your goal. It may take you longer, but let's start somewhere. I think if you as a practitioner are able to do those things, it's easy all day, right? Because I will walk in and I know what I'm looking for. I know the problem I want to solve for. And so I need you as my care, right? As my doctor, as my nurse, as my injector, as my esthetician. I want you to tell me what that looks like and how do I get from point A to point Z. And then educate me on what that process looks like. I'm coming to you for answers and solutions. And I think a lot of times in practices I see, they just don't know what those are. And they lean on the client's desire for a specific treatment or modality that they think they need, when in actuality, it could be something quite different.
Yeah. So it's a lot of the trend right now, we'll take today, Kim K getting Zerf for skin tightening on her face. And it's her new favorite treatment of the week or the month. It was
right.
Soft wave before. So how do you see like kind of these celebrity trends impacting that? Because I love the way you explained it. You're not selling, you're helping guide the buyer on their journey. You're the fairy woman and helping guide them down that path. I really love the way you kind of switch that conversation around from selling. But in these trends, how do you combat the hottest new thing of the week or the month?
Well, I think it's great to have the tool like we have here with Ponce AI. That's going to give them a good understanding of, wait a second, they're recommending something else, but I was really interested in this thing that I saw on social media, and they did this one thing and they look gorgeous. And what they don't know is that they've done 15 other things along with that service. It wasn't the one thing that answered all of it. And having someone to be able, just like what we're talking to today, set them up for the bigger picture, that it is more than one modality, right? I mean, I'm old. I do a lot of things to not look old. And there's not one thing. There's not one treatment that I get, or there's not one product that I use that's the answer to everything. And I think anytime you hear that, and as long as you do this, you're going to be this, at that point, you should run from that provider, because it's not true.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is it's all about the plan.
It is.
It's not for that tox right now, because what is it for? Is it to reduce the fine lines? Do you not like your forehead moving? And no one likes the fine lines, but fine lines are really kind of like you brought up, a really a long-term outcome that needs different services and modalities, if I'm understanding correctly.
Right. It's not just tox. Right? That's one of the biggest issues that I have, is getting, before and after photos of a patient that their wrinkles are gone, but that their texture of their skin or their pigmentation is absolutely dreadful. How do I post that on social media? I can't, right? You have to address the entire face or the entire area of concern, not just what they want addressed. Now, could we always move it back to start where they start? Of course. And that's where we are right now, right? With what are the common questions? What are the things that patients are coming to us for, right? We know the gateway drug is tox. There's a lot of other things. And I think, again, like you say, influencers are pushing us to lean in that direction for that service. But, if you have educated practitioners, they're going to know exactly where to start and where to finish.
Awesome. Well, Abby, thank you for the quick interview.
Yes, you're welcome.
Presentation's up, and if anyone has any questions, let us know in chat, and I'll be able to help you out there. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for letting me sign into my multiple Zoom accounts.
I know, right?
Yeah. So as I was saying, what we've developed is the ability to bring, like Matt had just said, and you guys were both talking about, the plan to the patient, right? And all the context to the patient and all of the education that goes with that plan, all of that to the patient's phone, right? So the Ponce AI platform combines all of these capabilities into one. So it starts with actually lead generation, where we didn't really talk about that, and we'll come back to that in a moment, but it starts with lead generation. And that's all about, getting the eyeballs that are looking at your practice from, your social media, on your website, and getting them engaged and showing them again what's possible. So not just before afters, but actually tailoring cases to show them which cases are relevant to them. So what you mentioned, Abby, is like, hey, there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing, right? It's not just one thing. And showing patients real cases of real people and how they got multiple treatments together and kind of what they started and what they ended is kind of how we do lead generation, right? So we've got a tool that plugs into the website, that plugs into the social media, and helps you take all of the marketing activity that you're doing and get more leads from that. So it kind of starts there. And
So
then
you
it
build
kind of
it
goes,
into your intake process? Is that what I'm hearing? That's the like just before they ever come, if is after the appointment's been booked, or do you utilize this even before an appointment's been booked?
even before. So before
Okay.
you even have a relationship, anything, the idea is there's a lot of people that will check your business out, right? They're coming to your social media, they're coming to your website, but most people see pretty low conversion rates. And so we're able
Hmm.
to get more consultations booked just from our lead generation tools. So it starts
Got
there.
it.
You don't know the patient yet. Once you know the patient, now it's all about how do you make that experience richer. So like if they've booked an appointment, now you want to make sure that one, they come in, right? A lot of, there's a no-show problem that we can address. There's also the ability when they do come in that they're primed and ready to buy, right? And so that's kind of where the education and the assessments come into play. So right from the patient's phone, automatically, we are allowing them to do facial assessment scans. And those scans will look at their skin, their volume, and their structural conditions and give them an understanding of a baseline of what's going on, right? So they'll see where volume loss is, where there's laxity, where there's structural loss of bone or something. All of that is highlighted through that assessment process, and then we educate patients on how that what's going on with like a almost like a chat GPT type of experience but it's tailored specifically to what's going on with their facial aesthetics.
And that's built in that it's not just a generic platform that's taking a look at someone's, what their concerns are. Tell me a little bit about your platform, your AI and your knowledge base that, you've been working with. Because I know that's really important. It's a question I get from a lot of my clients when I'm working with different partners in the industry. There's something new flying up every day, but it's not really trained. The knowledge is very generic. I know that's not the case with Ponce AI.
Yeah, yeah. So our co-founder is a plastic surgeon, right? And so she has set the guidelines and the criteria for how the analysis functions. And so all those that knowledge base is driven from. It started with her clinical knowledge, but what's actually happened is we've allowed the AI to learn over time. So as different providers use our platform, it actually tailors to their approach. So I'll give
Okay.
you a specific example, right? We have clients all over the country, and what one provider wants to treat and how they want to treat it is different than what another one wants to treat and how they treat it. So we'll look at like eyelid, ptosis as an example. We have a client who they saw the eyelid droop on a client and said, well, you know what, that wasn't really a big deal. I don't think it warrants any surgery or anything. It may not even warrant like an energy-based tightening treatment. But then we had another client in a part of the country where aesthetics and aging is not so desirable, and so they have a very very limited tolerance for aging, and they wanted to treat that minimal sag. And so the AI basically, as they started treating that, learned from what they were doing, and so what it wouldn't mention in one provider's case, it starts mentioning to the patients of the other provider. Right, so it's really tailoring. It's a base that we built with Dr. Tanya Judge as the protocols, but then those protocols are adapted to each provider based on their personalized style.
Yeah. And I know when the client is coming in and these things are being recommended, I could see how that transition would be easily, incorporated into the consultation. But what does it look like on the provider side when this information comes in from these new clients? So we've had the lead. The lead has now used used our technology. They're coming in, they're getting booked, and we're solving that problem. But now they're coming in prepared to talk. What does that tool look like on the provider side? Because that's a
Yeah.
big problem that I see and I have with clinics all across the country.
Yeah, yeah. So let's skip ahead here. I think you're what we see here is really this piece, right? Is before the visit starts, what we're doing is giving patients the ability to do that facial assessment, and then in that assessment, we're learning from them what their goals are. So it's very much driven by a patient in the same way that a consultation is driven by a patient, right? Consultation is a patient coming in and saying, "This is what I want to achieve." And so what they're doing though is they're starting that experience on the platform. And once they start that, then we are also, using the phone camera to assess their facial aesthetics, what we just talked about a moment ago. And so we combine all that together and we share all this information back with the provider. So before the patient even walks in, the provider already has this shared context around what is the patient's goals and kind of what's going on with their skin. They can look at photos as well, visually, along with our analysis that accompanies that. And now they're able to have a really, really good picture of what does the patient want, what do they need, right? That and patients actually literally opt in and out of these recommendations. So when they walk in to see the provider, the provider has seen, they're like, oh, this patient wants to, they might have like some skin concerns and they might have some like volume loss under their eyes, but really what they want to talk about is their jawline, right? They want to talk about their lips and their jawline. And so they already know that going in. So it's almost like having a crystal ball that the provider is able to be so well prepared and then use that time during the visit to focus on the things that the patient wants, but then to kind of broaden that conversation to how these other things might relate to getting the ideal result, right? So if you're talking about, you're wanting to focus on your cheeks, the provider might say, well, listen, I think your eyes and your cheeks together, that's how you're going to get the best result. You want to bring back, you want to add definition to your cheeks, but adding volume back to your eyes under your eyes would really help you make those cheeks kind of stand out. And so that ability to bring that in and the fact that the patient has already seen all this stuff before they even walk in just makes that process so glorious, right? It's like you're not pushing, you don't feel like you're selling, you're just educating patients on how they can be the best version of themselves.
That's my education. That is the biggest tool, right? Like, yeah, if you aren't able to educate a client, you're not going to be able to have long term with that client. They're in and out. You're going to lose them, and that goes to another question, right? You're utilizing this. We've made their recommendations, but they necessarily don't take them, or they decide to opt out, or we didn't convert them. What does that look like? How are we able to use AI to nurture that patient so that they aren't spa hopping? We know that's a problem, right?
Yeah. So, let's talk about kind of what happens in the consult and what happens after the consult, right? And so, like we think all of these things, these touch points matter with the patients. And so, during the consult, you're going to talk about these things, right? Like today, before you have Ponce, you talk about a lot of these things today. What we find is that the vast majority of these treatment discussions that happen end up not leading to purchases, right? And it's fine. I think providers are like, they care about their patients. And so they want to tell and inform their patients as much as possible. But patients just don't make decisions that way, right? They don't buy, expensive treatments, things that happen to their body. They don't just buy on the spot. They really want to go do their homework, right? And so what ends up happening is that they don't end up making that decision. So they get some information from the provider. A lot of times that can be a little confusing, right? A lot of these things are technical. There's a lot of medical jargon behind these things. There's some science. And so they have weird names like, hyaluronic acid, like what is that, right? And so all of these things can kind of go over a patient's head. And so what we do is, one, we make that experience during the consult way easier. And we call it visual conversation, right? And visual conversation is the idea that when you're talking about something, you're able to show relevant treatment results and outcomes right there in that context. So instead of me saying, "Hey, we're gonna, fix your, you've got some volume loss here and some pigmentation here," we're actually showing you real cases. And what we do is instead of showing, simulations that may or may not be correct, that are maybe just a nice, a picture that may or may not be real, we're actually showing you real cases. But what we're doing is we have a giant case library that we've built. And what we're doing is we're matching those cases to you. So for Abby, for you, we would find, someone with a similar skin tone, gender match you, facial structure match you, and most importantly, we would match you with the types of concerns that you're concerned about, that you want to address. And so when you're looking at these cases, you're looking at someone who's a real person who got this real case and got that real treatment, but who looks just like you and had very similar goals. And what that allows you to do is to see, instead of just me talking and telling, what you could look like after, right? So that's what we call visual conversation. And through this experience, what we do is we build the treatment plan together. The provider and the patient build out a plan. And we don't expect most patients, and this is your question, we don't expect all the patients to sit and say, "Okay, well, sign me up for the works," right? They're going to say, "Well, let me start with the talks that I came in here for, and then I'll think about the rest." The think about the rest is where we lose patients normally, but where we are able to actually convert them, right? You have this plan, and what you do is you take this plan home, right? And so when you take this plan home, all of this information is now accessible to you at home, the entire plan with all of the details. We're able to then tie the learning right back to it. So you have the ability to, like, in a chat-based form, talk with the patient is able to talk with an AI that understands your plan about any questions they might have, and they have a clear idea of what the next steps are, so that we can continue to reinforce like what the plan is and what to do next. So the next time they come in, they're ready to buy the next step of that plan.
So that leads me to another question, because ultimately with the clinics that I work with, we come up with our comprehensive treatment plan formula, or our care plan formula, meaning this is what it looks like at Med Spa X or Longevity Center Y. So are they able to tailor and customize that with what they require and what they want for each client? For example, skincare, we're looking at other treatments, we're looking at complementary treatments, and then also building in that long-term relationship with the client.
Yep. So, we are big believers in that personalization concept, not only for the patient, but also for the providers. We think that every provider has their own unique style, their unique approach. And we want, when we extend their experience to the phone, right, for their patients, we need to reflect all that. So what does that mean, right? What that means for us is that every treatment that we show that we show to the patient ever is reflective of what the provider offers in their clinic. And if they don't offer it, it's not there. And if they do offer it, it is there as an option. So we will never recommend or even show the patient a treatment that you don't offer.
This isn't a one size fits all. This really is for each individual clinic.
That's right. Second thing is, when you do build a plan, right, with the patient, everything, like we said, is customized to the provider. So for example, their skincare products, whatever they carry, we only show that within the application. So the plan that you've built shows your treatments, your skincare products, right? So if I say, as a provider, I want you to use an SPF for sun protection every day, it's the SPFs that I carry, right? It's not just a random, say, SPF of something else.
SPF, right?
Yeah, right. So everything is tailored to the provider at every aspect of this journey.
And all of that is available right from their phone, which we always have in our possession all the time. When I lose my phone, I lose my mind, right? So
everything is on my phone.
Exactly.
My car, my house.
They're not. Yeah, that they're not going to lose their plan. They're going to have it right there at all times as a reminder. Oh, I want this. I want to receive that. I always say I'm the ideal client for any clinic, a patient. Because I want it all. Obviously, I'm one of those people where I, take all my money if you're going to show me that you can do it, right? Once I believe that you truly can fix it. But there is that moment where you kind of take a step back and you kind of go, okay, maybe I should just start here. So having something to step in that gap to get me to take that next step, which I already know I want to go, is very powerful.
Absolutely. We think it just takes people need to revisit this information. They need to be able to, go research it, look it up, talk to their friends. I mean, though that's how people, we talked about this in the beginning, but people really need to make decisions on their timeline now. And putting information in their pocket along with your expertise around why did I recommend this treatment for you? How do these multiple treatments build this plan for you? And so how are we going to get you that ideal result? Well, actually, it's going to be a combination of things, right? You might have, an annual laser to maintain kind of that collagen tone, but some daily, maintenance and protection with skincare. And then on top of that, we're going to do point-based treatments, right? We're going to add structure here, so on and so forth. And so that ability to have that full plan, but then also to explain it and really easily understand on the patient's phone is a really powerful thing. And we do a lot of things with that. We let the patient continue to, when next time they come in, we let them scan again. And they're able to kind of revisit the plan. They're able to also just, if they're curious, look at outcomes of treatments for all these different treatments that are in the plan. They can browse results and all that all at their fingertips. And so again, we're really just taking a lot of what the provider is doing and putting it in a way that's right at the patient's fingertips, so that you're there when they're thinking about treatments at any point, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to do.
And they don't have to come in clinic, right?
They don't have to come in clinic, right? It's on their phone.
It's right there. So, okay, what outcomes do you think matter the most to owners, right? Whether it's working with being prepared, follow through, repeat visit. I know what I think. Spend lift, right? Like when we're looking at like buying equipment or that becomes very antiquated and outdated as well very quickly. And now you have a large investment. So maybe speak a little bit about those things. What have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of what providers bring us in to help them boost revenue, right? I think that's the first and foremost thing. The remarkable thing is, with a new technology like AI, you can actually do that while increasing the patient experience at the same time. So it's a win-win, right? Your patients are way happier. They tell us they're prepared. They give really great, testimonials about what their experience has been, because now they have all this information that they never had before. And the providers are their consultations are smooth, right? They're efficient and they're generating more revenue, and they never have to feel like they push. And so I think the first piece is always revenue boost, right? And so that's we've been able to demonstrate that in some case studies with our clients. So I think that's one. There's some other ones that go with it. I think obviously they care a ton about patient experience. Like none of our clients are going to do anything that hurts their patient experience. So I think that's a big one that I talked about. Differentiation is another one that we hear a lot, where this market is becoming competitive and a bit commoditized, and so people are jumping from spa to spa and looking for that slightly different lower price, and being able to move away from just feeling like a commodity where it's all about price, and something where you can make that experience better, but not having to invest a ton or make it really complicated to do that, I think allows spas to now feel like they have a different and better experience, and that makes them feel differentiated. So differentiation is another one that we see. And then we see, I think the last one is no shows and loyalty, right? So patients dropping off is another thing. Again, goes back to the thing before. Patients are hopping around looking for the next deal or whatever it is. But if they have a plan where they know where they're going and why, they come back more. And so we've seen, I don't have it in this presentation, but we saw an Allergan study that said, if patients they go from one product or service to 2 to 3, their loyalty increases 97%, right? And so that's really what we're seeing that in practice, right? When providers use our platform, their patients continue to come back because they know why they're coming. And it's not just, who's going to give me the cheapest Botox today.
Yeah, I always talk about the study. If someone comes to you the second time, they're more likely to stay with you forever. It's that gym analogy. The more you go, the more you feel at home. You're not as embarrassed. It's where price becomes irrelevant, right? Because at the end of the day, they're nurtured. And if we're treating them like it's 2015, this is why people hire us at Pink Sky to come in and make them more efficient and effective when they're not utilizing, they're still filming all of those what to expect videos, and they're putting all of this effort into this where AI could be doing this for them right away, but it's them. It's what to expect with their skincare. So that's another question that I have for you. When you're onboarding clinics like this, what do you see the biggest pushback is in utilizing this? Or do you find that they easily adopt it right in? And how do we get to that 33% increase?
Yeah, so like I said, we have multiple tools here. This one is about the in-clinic tool. Doesn't even talk about kind of the new leads, right, that we talked about
Right.
earlier.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's kind of an addition. Implementing the lead tool is really simple. It just goes, plugs into your website and social media. So there's no pushback there whatsoever. I think that's really easy for everybody. On the facial analysis app and the in-clinic tools, I think the only challenge is what you'll see is the speed at which providers will uptake. And I think we've seen this, in the industry, people will bring in a new technology, and some providers are keen to adopt it, and some are just resistant. Oftentimes are,
Absolutely.
oh, if it's an owner, they're super keen, right? Because they see the value. But a lot of times, some providers are just, they don't want to change the way they're doing something. And so one of the things we're really proud of that we can do that nobody else can do in the industry is the fact that we go direct to patient actually solves this problem, right? So all of our competitors are only provider based, whereas we have patient app and a provider app. And what that means is we can go, patients can directly access the platform, right? Before, when they come in, they can scan QR codes, they get texted before their appointments. And so they're able to access directly without needing the provider, right? We're the only company in the entire industry that has something like that, where the patient can access directly. And patients love this stuff, right? Because patients want to know. They want to know. They're like, how do I get there, right? How do I look the way I want? What are my
Right.
options? They want all the information. And so what this does is that even if some of the providers are resistant to some degree, what it does is actually puts it in the patient's hand, and now the patient comes in asking for treatments, and providers love that. They're happy to do that. So we've kind of solved that problem by having the two sides of this platform and letting the patients kind of tap in directly. There is a little bit of, you can see some providers have that, some older providers especially, who are worried that it's going to be complicated, even though it probably isn't in real life. But we solve a lot of that with our patient app.
Well, they're going to save time too, right? That revenue per hour is going to go up because now we're shrinking that consultation time. They're going to see their commission, their bonuses get higher. That's one thing I notice when we're really adopting AI technology into all of our clinics is the ability to see more clients or to see a higher volume. I think change is hard. Change is hard, but it's here, right? So it's here, so we better jump on the train. So outside of all of this, the fact that we're able to take this with us, you've talked about that. You've talked about the ease of use for the clients and patients. What is that opt-in rate for those patients that now have an appointment? I mean, what's the percentage? Is it 100% of people that go in and do their scan, or do you find that it's still hard for even, some of those patients to jump in and want to jump into the app?
Yeah. So the opt-in rate is it varies so much depending on the practice. But we'll see anywhere from 20% on the low end up to 70% on the high end, right? So it's a huge, huge range.
Yeah.
And it really depends on where the practice is, the age of the people, how well the practice markets it, and how deeply we're integrated. So we can see a huge range. But the beauty is that even with, let's say on the low end, right, on the worst case at 20%, we still have an entire provider platform that can be used in the clinic. And so the way that we implement the tool, again, being software based and being mobile device based, gives us a lot of flexibility, right? So if we take a moment here to think about, the closest solutions that compete with us in the market are device-based tools. And those devices are entirely in the hands of the provider. And so the provider has to, and they're usually a fixed physical device. So you have to take the patient to the device, right? Every single patient with come into the office, then you take them to the clinic, then you take them to the device, and then you scan them, then take them to the room. It's a very clunky workflow. And what we find is that in practice, people don't even do it. It ends up going into a closet or sitting on a desk collecting dust. What we're able to do is get patients at different points of the journey. So, like you said, at home, they can do it on their own. We talked about that. Some of our clients will have patients do it at the check-in. So when they walk in, they'll either have a tablet or even simpler, it's a card with a QR code on it that has some instructions that while they're waiting in the lobby, if they have a few minutes, they can scan this, and within a minute or two, they're able to have their assessment and start browsing sort of a personalized list, a personalized sushi menu of the services and products that make sense for them, and it explains why. Right? So they can do it then. Then, of course, we still have the ability for the provider to do it, but not just have it in one single location. Any provider, any member of the staff can take out their phone and do it. So most often, like I'll tell you, very common we have is whoever rooms the patient. Sometimes it's like an assistant, front desk person. It could be an MA. And all these people will pull out their phone when they room the patient, and right there and then will start the experience. So while they're waiting for their provider to come in, they're now being engaged. And then now when they meet the provider, they're asking about those additional treatments. So these are all different ways that we're able to engage the patients with the tools, because we have so much flexibility, because everyone's got a phone. The patient's got a phone, your front desk has a phone, and your providers have a phone. And that's where it really just changes the whole game around actual usage of the tool and gets the benefits.
You just weave it through the entire patient journey.
That's right.
But the other thing it solves for is those pesky before and after photos, right? At the end of the day, as a provider and working with providers, getting them to like pull it up and go to that file. That's one of the things that I used to do with my clients is we would have the before and after folder on the iPad, and you open it up and then there's all the different treatments of a great result, right? And now we're going to pull up that photo and show like, look what your results can be. This solves for that problem for me and my clients across the board, because now it's built in and they almost want to use it, where before it kind of falls short. It's like feels too salesy to show, to pull it out. So that's a big piece of this puzzle for me, because having a visual, so for you and when you're putting this together, I feel like most clients are visual. They want to see a result, right? That's why before and afters are gold on social media, right? Because you can see right then, what you could have, right? Those aren't going away. But if you're able to incorporate this, like you said, in all of the stages of the journey, not just if they don't do it before they come in, we don't do it, now we can add it in. You're going to see that conversion so much easier when you're looking at those bigger packages, when we look at the big picture.
Absolutely. And I think we do a lot with, letting patients take photos from their own phone. Is a lot of our technology goes into that, right? Is to be able to use AI to guide them, to make sure that those photos look consistent and clean, even though they're not taking in a completely controlled environment, right? Which is what our competitors do. Or even if you don't, you're doing photos today, you're trying to standardize things as much as possible. Some people go as far as having a photo room with flashes and all that. And others are taking them, most of our clients, I think, just take them with their phone in the room, but they are trying really, it's the same person taking them. They're training everybody on how to take them. They're using a standard wall or something. So they do all this stuff to standardize photos. We're able to do all of that with AI, right? So that doesn't have to happen. And so even if the patient takes the photos or the providers take them, you're always getting those clean, consistent photos.
No, this amazing, right? That photo policy, and you only take photos on this wall. I even have clinics that have the dimmer, right? They're marked where it has to be at this level for photos, and we stand here, and it's just that case usage is it gets to be burdensome, as well as space, right? So I love that this solves for that. And so when you're incorporating this, I know we talked about that 33% increase, but tell me a little bit about like when you're incorporating AI into your practice and you're using this for your analyzer and you're getting that patient set up for success before they ever come in. You've said a 33% increase. I know that you've been working with clinics across the country. Talk to me a little bit more about those case studies of some of your clients.
Yeah, so when we go do these case studies where we want to measure this, we're pretty scientific about how to figure out what the lift is, the spend lift. And so what we did in these cases is basically we would put it together a group of patients as like a pilot, like people who are on the pilot. And for those people, they would use our platform. We would look at what recommendations they were given from the product, and then they would meet with their providers and build their plans. And then over this period, usually it's like 1 to 2 months period. I think this one was 45 days for this last study. Is we'll look at exactly which treatments they purchased in addition to what they had before, and compare that to the recommendations they were given. And so if those line up, we can sort of say that is driven by the platform. And so we're very rigorous about this, right? I think people are very wishy-washy about this. My background coming from the technology industry is like, we're really rigorous about sort of demonstrating this data. And so we're happy to kind of share some of those studies out as well, so people can take a look. We want them to see how powerful the tool is.
Yeah. I think I always say I micromanage systems, not people. So putting the tools in your tool belt that you need to be efficient and effective so that the patient has a better experience. The provider isn't rushed, right? They can take time. I think at the end of the day, that's truly how you're going to, price becomes irrelevant, right? They drive 30 minutes plus every other clinic around them to come to you when they have that. And then it frees up the provider to truly be the provider, right?
Yep, exactly. So, I think, I want to thank you for the helping us kind of bring this conversation out today, right? I think we're really excited about our partnership. We're excited about bringing in a new way to make providers' lives easier, to really enhance the patient experience, and to help the providers and the incredible providers in the industry really just move their business forward in a way by using AI in a really in a way that we think is a really exciting application that really goes beyond what most people are talking about today, right? What you hear in the industry is like everyone's like, oh, we can use ChatGPT to like respond to a message that comes in from a new customer, and that's fine, it's great, but I think that is quickly going to become annoying. Right? You're going to have every business on everything you do sending you odd AI messages, and that's just more spam in a world that's already pretty spammy. And so, we think that how can we really improve that patient experience in a way and modernize it in a way that people want today? And we think that, and we've seen this already with our customers, is that helping patients understand how to reach their goals, but doing so in a way that they want on their devices, but doing so also in a way that makes you as the provider shine, is the right approach. And so we combine all that together, right, with the planning tools, the assessment tools, the customization, all of that, and put it all in the hands of the patient. And so we're very excited and continue to work with you guys and all your clients to kind of bring this experience forward.
Yeah, I think, when Anthony and I look at, who we want to partner with in the industry, we look at like, what does that platform, what does their business solve for, right? And this checks a lot of my boxes, right? As you know, I'm an AI nerd, but I'm also in operations, efficiency, effectiveness. And so when I look at that lead to nurture to appointment to invoice to membership to ongoing clinic, increasing that visit from 3 times a year to 4 times per year, whatever that could look like. This solves all those problems. Plus those pesky before and after photos, all of those little things that I'm always struggling to get my clinics to opt into. Now it just makes this so easy because it's just built right in, and a lot of times it's done for us before they ever come in. So really, really thrilled to be partnering with you guys as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Do we have any questions that we want to take before we start to wrap this up? And Matthew, I can let you take it if you'd like. If we don't have any questions, Matthew, I'll let you wrap us up.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything come through right now, but man, that was a wonderful conversation between you two, and it's a really exciting time, Abby, especially for Pink Sky, as AI is really kind of, I think we're through the chat GPT phase now, finally.
Yeah. Right.
We still see the M dashes and everything online, but now these tools are really starting to get fine-tuned. So, what an exciting time for you guys at Pink Sky to help facilitate the introduction of these tools to, the aesthetic world. And, Sugam, we're here building at Ponce and really helping to push the consultation and treatment plans conversations forward. So, to everyone who tuned in today, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. If you want to learn more about Ponce, get a hands-on demo. You have a QR code and an email address on the screen. Feel free to reach out, and we would love to show you, what we built and how it can impact your clinic.
Perfect. All right, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.